It is time to huddle up at the Weekly Huddle podcast because draft season doesn't stop, and neither do we. Once again, Newt Westen joining you guys for another summer scouting positional ranking episode. Today we are looking at our last offensive group of players, the interior offensive linemen. So really excited for this, excited to kind of close the chapter on the offensive group. I think that this is one that definitely resonates with me because two things. Number one, I actually got a chance to start on Draft Professor with the interior offensive line group, which is where I got a chance to meet Owen. So really happy to kind of get back to these trench players here. And then number two, this is probably the biggest group that's seen change for me in terms of my rankings for prospects. As you know, I've revised the way that I am doing my prospect grading this year. And one of the big changes for this group was I am not splitting them up into guards and centers. I'm keeping them as one. I know that there are pros and cons to that. Some people might talk about the center position being even more devalued than the guard position. And there are guys that are really guard only and center only. However, I think that there's enough crossover between them. And there's a lot of players on this list, especially that I can point to and say, yeah, they can play guard or center. There's a player on this list that has shown that he definitely has the ability to play both of those. So I felt it appropriate to lump them in here together because of such a similar skill set, a similar grading set for all of these positions. So I will clarify center, guard, as I'm going through this, where I see them, what they've done thus far. So for this, I got a chance to watch 15 players. I have a couple more on my list there that I'll give a shout out to. And so I'll kind of list some of those off. But before I do, as always, I want to shout out the channel, shout out Owen and all the work that he does. If you have not yet subscribed to the Weekly Huddle on YouTube, please smash that button in the bottom corner of this video. It really does help us out, and we appreciate it very much. We've gotten through all of the offensive positions, like I've said. Now with this one capping off that sixth position, we're moving to the 5 defensive positions after that. So if you want to stay in tune to that, up to date to that, make sure that you turn those notifications on, hit that subscribe button, and follow along. But without further ado, let's talk about some of these players. So 2 players that I think are going to be probably names that we'll hear in this draft cycle, but really haven't seen a ton of playing time yet, are going to be Roderick Kearney out of Florida and Alex Birchmeier out of Penn State. Both of them have played less than 100 snaps. Really didn't feel comfortable grading them with that small sample size. So I did get them on my list. They're definitely players I'm looking to check out this draft cycle, but ones that I don't feel comfortable putting a grade on, just given the small sample size. After that, I did get a chance to look at Emmanuel Pregnon, formerly USC, formerly Wyoming before that, now at Oregon for his 6th year. TJ Shanahan, actually watched him by accident, looking to watch another player on this list that we'll get to. He's now at Penn State. Caden Green at Missouri, a player that I'm probably going to be a little bit lower on, but he comes in at number 12 for me. And then a player that actually I got a chance to watch, Telek Lockett out of Texas State. He's going to be in that group of 5 team pool, and he's an exciting player. I think he is part of the first team preseason all Sun Belt roster for the 2025 Sun Belt group. So I think he's a fun player coming out of that group of 5. Plays guard for them. He comes in just at 11, missing the top 10. If he was just my guards, he would definitely be a player that we're having a conversation about. But special shout out to Telek Lockett coming in at 11. But really, without further ado, we want to talk about the top 10. So let's go ahead and let's get into that. We start with Bryce Foster out of Kansas. Bryce Foster is a redshirt senior. He comes in with a really good size for an interior offensive lineman, 6'5", 330 pounds. Just the force and the mass that you want in the middle. With a lot of these players, I look for 2 things in terms of their athletic background, and actually I should say 2 sports in terms of their athletic background. One being wrestling. I think that single most important thing that an interior offensive lineman can do outside of football is wrestling. But then number 2, which is a really common thing as well, is going to be field events. For Bryce Foster, he was a field star. He played at Texas A&M for, I want to say, a season or 2. And in that time there, he actually competed on their track and field team. And he holds the 5th best ever discus for the Texas A&M history. So amazing feat for that. I'm sorry, he was best shot put, the 5th best shot put in Texas A&M University history. He also, going back to his time in high school, was a shot put champion in the state of Texas, and he was 3rd in discus. So a really excellent thrower for track and field. Obviously something that I find really alluring for these players. But what makes him number 10 on my list is going to be really how he plays, in my opinion, one of the more important aspects of an interior offensive lineman, the run game. So he's the center for Kansas, and he has, with that size and a really good IQ, kind of a good presence to anchor that line. He has a really good understanding of generating leverage as an offensive lineman. With that, he's able to move players off their spot. A lot of times, centers you're going to see being utilized part of his double team. With him, he could go one-on-one with some nose tackles, or even slide over and take a 3-tech on to clear out a hole. Just everything that he brings in that aspect of the game is really, really good. One thing, though, that kind of holds him back is the other side of the game, which is pass protection. I think that his anchor is not where I'd like to see it, especially given how much functional play strength he has on the run side of the game. I'd love to see that translate over to the pass protection. For me, it just doesn't. So I think that the biggest thing that he can do looking forward to the 2026 NFL draft is to really improve his technique and ability in pass protection. But Bryce Foster, center. I think he can play guard too. I think he's got the mass and the quickness to do that. Definitely a player that has an opportunity there to be a riser. Comes in at number 10 on my list. Number 9 is Armaj Reed Adams out of Texas A&M University. Funny enough, Bryce Foster starts at Texas A&M, goes to Kansas. Armaj Reed Adams starts at Kansas and moves to Texas A&M. Once again, another thrower, did shot put and discus. He's going to be a player that is going to be a guard for the interior offensive lineman position. And as if the similarities between Foster don't continue, he's actually also 6'5", 330 pounds, 6-year senior for him. He was another player that his name was up a lot during last year's draft cycle. I think for good reason. I think he would have definitely been a drafted player, probably a day 3 pick, though. One thing that derailed that opportunity for him or made him kind of decide to come back was just a late season injury. Just looking here, he had a labrum injury at the end of the season. I believe something in his back. That kind of set him back a little bit, no pun intended, and really kind of pushed him to come back this year. So with Armaj Reed Adams, he is a player that has some good functional play strength to him. I think he matches up really well with power rushers. He's got good movement off the line, both laterally and just kind of straightforward to move people well in the run game and get out in space. And so I really like a lot of the raw talent that he brings to the game. But for him, just some things that kind of knock him down my list are going to be the ability to sustain blocks is really not there. I think Foster does a better job in the run game of really eliminating a player from the play. And Reed Adams, he can get a really good push, but he just loses that after a couple seconds. He's not able to sustain that. He doesn't also have that Mauler mentality. So he's not looking to blow a guy up. He's really just kind of looking to, make that explosive move, but then enough's enough with that almost. And I want to see more of him looking to blow a guy up. Obviously, in a smart way and in a controlled way, not like when he's playing out of control, but like, hey, give me a little nasty in there. So definitely something for him. And then just some overall lateral quickness. Once he gets that first jump off of there, he's really good at getting in a pass set, but he can get crossed over really easily with speed rushers and with a strong counter. So I think he needs to improve that. I think it also goes into one other thing for him is just an abundance of penalties that he had. He had 11 penalties last year. It's almost a penalty a game. You got to clean that up. A lot of them are holding penalties because he's just not moving his feet quick enough. He's grabbing on. He's getting those holding calls. Something that definitely I need to see improvement here moving forward this season if I'm going to consider this guy a legitimate NFL prospect and one that has an opportunity to crack a starting lineup and be more than just that 6th, 7th offensive lineman. So Armaj Reed Adams out of Texas A&M University, guard, probably guard only out of Texas A&M University, comes in at number 9. 8 is Iapani Lalulu out of Oregon. He is flip side a younger player, True Jr. Comes in at 6'2", but 325. So this dude is built like a tree trunk, and you'll love to see it for this position. I like a guy that's a little bit shorter when you're playing an interior offensive lineman, but you still got that girth and that mass, especially if you can move with that. And Lalulu definitely brings that. He got an opportunity to play a good amount of snaps, both at center and at guard, mostly at center, but over 10% of his snaps were at guard, which really makes you comfortable projecting him to play any of those 3 positions. And that versatility, I think, is going to be something that helps to raise his stock. He's definitely a plus pass protector for an interior offensive lineman. He's got really, really good lateral quickness. He can match defenders very well, and that mass gives him a really strong anchor and natural leverage to be able to put up to power rushers that come through him. So I love his play strength. I love the leverage that he plays with. In run blocking, he's not as consistent as I would like to see. There's a clip of him just absolutely moving Kenneth Grant off his spot when they played Michigan, which stands out when you're bullying a top 15 pick in last year's draft. I think that that's going to raise some eyebrows and really draw people's attention. But he didn't do it on a down-to-down basis, so I want to see him continue that. And I think just some of that comes from technique. You'll see him whiff on blocks out in space and really lose a rep because he's not as precise in the use of hands as you might like to see. I also don't see him moving his legs that much when he's engaged in a block. He almost kind of comes still, doesn't give the ability to drive through. Even in pass protection at times, he'll just kind of be there and working everything from his upper body. I want to see a little bit more movement from that, him kind of turning his legs a little bit more. He had 7 penalties as well last year, which you can kind of see when you're not moving your legs, when you're not chopping your feet, you're going to be able to kind of get extended and get those holding calls, which you don't like to see. But Iapani Lalulu comes in at number 8. Like I said, mostly played center. I could definitely see him playing center or guard at the next level. Number 7 is going to be another player that was kind of talked about in last year's draft. So I'm honestly surprised he chose to come back. I'm not going to complain, though, because the more Logan Jones tape that I get to watch, the better my draft cycle is going to be. Logan Jones, the six-year senior out of Iowa, is going to be their 3rd-year starter, maybe 4th-year starter now. Actually, I'm thinking about this. Will be his 4th year starting as the center for the Hawkeyes. And if you're kind of doing the math backwards, he did, in fact, take over for Tyler Linderbaum. Maybe you've heard of him. In his first full season as a player. So he's kind of got an interesting background to him. Once again, one of the things I love to hear is wrestling background. He was a state title winner and shot put. And he also does have a little bit of wrestling background to him. He is going to be a player that actually started as a defensive lineman recruit. So he redshirted his first year as a defensive lineman player. That was during the COVID season, so he got an extra year of eligibility. Really didn't play a ton in that second year either, and I think that's kind of when they decided to make the transition for him over to the offensive line And then, as I said, the rest is history with him taking over Linderbaum, playing 3 full seasons, now coming up on that 4th season. So for him, he's going to be a smaller player. He's center only, and that's going to be because he comes in at 6'3", 293 pounds. Funny enough, I believe currently, as I'm recording this, Iowa has him listed at 6'3", 263 pounds. I'm assuming that's a typo, and I'm just going to go with last year's listed weight of 293. But dear God, if it's not, then this all of a sudden becomes a much more interesting prospect. But you see that sub 300 pound frame, it's definitely going to lock you into that center only. And even then, you don't love that because of just some strength concerns that you might have. But if you turn on the film and you watch Logan Jones, you all of a sudden do not have those strength concerns. Just to quote a friend of mine, Clint is a huge Logan Jones fan, and he always talks about his true country strength, drives to practice in a Ford truck and then picks it up and starts doing push-ups with said pickup truck. Logan Jones, for the size that he has, he definitely plays way, way, way above his weight class. On top of that, he's a really smart player. He's stellar in run blocking. He climbs he climbs to the second level well. He moves his feet, constantly churning them, understands the technical side of the game, understands how to engage and lock into blocks with his hands, sustain those blocks. And he really showed an ability to kind of blossom as a player. I think that just with him coming in as defensive line recruit and then making that transition over the last 3 years, you've seen really, really good things with him and what he's shown in an ability to grow as a player. Now with that, he's still got to improve some hand techniques with some striking elements. He does climb to the second level well, but he needs to land blocks at the second level a little bit better. And there are times where, I love that country strength that he brings, but man, it does show up, and the game only gets bigger at the next level. So it is a little bit of a concern of mine. I'd love to see him get over 300 pounds, and if not, just really show, that kind of freakish strength at that size. I ultimately think he's going to be able to overcome that because he is that smart, that mature, and that strong of a player, but a couple of extra LBs would not hurt. But Logan Jones, center out of Iowa, comes in at number 7, and then rounding out the back half of my top 10, Parker Brailsford comes in at number 6, and he's going to have a similar build to Logan Jones. Comes in at 6'2", 290 pounds. Another lighter player, probably center only, just with the build. Parker Brailsford, while he's that small in terms of kind of the interior offensive line position, I think, truth be told, he might be the best pass protector of this group. And it's pretty scary when you start to think about that in terms of all the things that he can do given that lack of size. I think a lot of that stems from, once again, his ability to be really refined in his technical approach to the game. He has the best hands of any player in this offensive lineman group. His strike is quick, it is strong, and it is going to knock players off their point. He's a really good ability to mirror defenders. That lighter frame definitely helps him in that realm. And it just gives him kind of a leg up where a lot of times you wouldn't see that. Once again, I'm talking about Logan Jones. I'm talking about Parker Brailsford in this slate of like, hey, they're very light. Jason Kelsey did play that light, and I know that's going to be something that comes up, and I want to mention that. You can't always have Jason Kelsey. Like, he's a freak. Like, the guy definitely played a brand of football that not everyone can play. However, he proved that it can be done. And I think with these two guys, Brailsford especially, given how refined he is and how patient he is in pass protection, has an opportunity to really shine given that lower profile. Additionally, because of that, he's extremely athletic for the position. He pulls into screens and out for runs really, really well. And then when he lands blocks in space, he has a really good mentality to finish them. However, for him, he's going to struggle a little bit more as a run blocker. And just, once again, that frame kills him. He does not have the natural leverage and strength that Logan Jones does, and I think that it deters his ability a little bit as a run blocker. He's not going to be a people mover for you. You're going to definitely want to pair him up with a guard to give a double team, which isn't the end of the world for your center position, but definitely going to be something where you kind of have to scheme around that. But Parker Brailsford, out of Alabama, true center, probably center only, comes in here at number 6, and that gets us to my top 5. Before we get there, I just want to kind of give that mid-episode break and remind you once again, if you're enjoying the content in here, please hit that like, that thumbs up button. It really helps us out. Consider subscribing to the channel. It's something that we really strive to kind of grow our viewership, and that starts with getting those subscriptions up. So please, if you can, you're enjoying this, hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends about us. Send a tweet out. Leave a comment. Anything like that is greatly appreciated. But as we move on to my top 5, we get to DJ Campbell out of Texas. This was a player, once again, there's a lot of older prospects in here. I was watching him last draft cycle, and I fell in love with DJ Campbell. Now, there's some pieces to his game that are really unrefined. And I think ultimately it was very smart for him to come back. He has some technical things that he needs to clean up. He's not an efficient blocker in space. He looks completely lost when he's trying to block out in space and struggles to get there. I think he looks heavy-footed and susceptible to counters, and I think some of that just comes to some technical footwork. Like, he just needs to improve and understand how he needs to move and turn his feet when he's moving out into a kick slide, when he is engaging defenders, and he ultimately just needs to get a little bit stronger in order to kind of be more of a people mover. I think he's got a nasty mentality to him, though. I really like how he looks to blow a guy up. It's devastating. If he lands a block in space, it's scary. It just doesn't happen as often as you like to see. But his frame that he comes in with, he is 6'3", 330, just numbers that I love to see. Shorter frame, as I've talked about, giving you some natural leverage, but a really good mass for the position. Great anchor in pass protection. So the strength is there. The frame is solid. I think he's got enough athletic ability to be dangerous. He just needs to improve some of those technical pieces. Ultimately, something that with his decision to come back, he's only a true senior right now. So he's out of eligibility after this year. He hasn't had that red shirt or even that COVID year on top of it. So still a fairly young player, especially for an offensive lineman as we take a look at that. But DJ Campbell, really high upside player, someone I'm excited to see this year, see if he can make some of those leaps forward. Comes in at number 5, guard out of Texas. Gets us to number 4, Chase Basantis out of Texas A&M University, a guard as well. 6'6", 330 pounds, really good mass, a little bit taller of a player. I don't think it's a detriment. I don't necessarily love it for his leverage, but I think that he does a really good job of getting around that height. So anytime that you're an interior offensive lineman, you want to be a little bit shorter, number one, for your quarterback. You don't want them to have to look over you. Like, man, if he gets drafted by Carolina and Bryce Young has to throw over him, I don't love that. But just ultimately that natural leverage it gives you. But Basantis really has found out a way to get around that. He's good at creating that leverage despite a taller frame. Very athletic guard. And I think that you can play guard and not be like a true natural athlete. But ultimately, the more athletic you are, it's going to help you out. I want to see players be able to move out to space and adjust to a quicker interior player or adjust to trying to find a linebacker or cornerback out in space. And I think Basantis has that ability to be an athletic run blocking defender or really good at kind of adjusting in space and playing out on an island quite well. He's punishing player. He's always looking to light a player up, finish a play. That nasty is something that I think is ultimately always going to be a plus. But for him, kind of why I see him right now, not, way at the top of my rankings, which I know some people are going to be a little bit higher on Basantis. Ultimately, for me, I think he's a top 5 guy. I think he's got a little bit more room to improve. But he's just got to finish some of those technical things. He's got to work to sustain blocks. He lunges that time. He's got a little bit of balance issues when he's reaching out. Be a little bit more patient. He's an athletic player that can match those defenders well on counter moves, on speed moves. He doesn't need to, kind of be anxious to get to the block point. So I think if he can just clean some of those things up, we're going to be hearing about this guy, man, maybe even top 50. I'm not saying bona fide top 50 pick, but I think he's definitely in that day 2 conversation right now. If you were to just kind of take consensus boards, definitely up there and only room to grow. Really an exceptional player given the fact that he's only a true junior at Texas A&M. So Chase Basantis, true junior, guard, Texas A&M University, comes in at number 4. And then at number 3, the run on true guards continues with Jaden Roberts, redshirt senior out of Alabama, comes in at 6'5", 310 pounds. That 310 pounds is 302 pounds of muscle and probably 8 pounds of fat. Probably an exaggeration, but not far off. This guy is built like an oversized edge rusher. I think I heard a stat last draft cycle that he has less than 10% body fat. And turn on the film, get the all 22 angle from the back side, and just see this guy line up, and you're gonna believe it right away. He is just ripped head to toe. And with that, he's also going to come in as probably one of the strongest players in this draft cycle and maybe of the last decade. The guy made Bruce Feldman's Freaks list last year just with some incredible weight room statistics, and I can imagine he's only gotten stronger going into this draft cycle. So with him, he's going to be a very heavy-handed mauler in the trenches. He has that unique strength that I talked about that is going to just show up in terms of getting players to move completely off their spots. He is a certified people mover when he gets his hands on a defender. Why he's not number 1 for me is just the technique and the refinement. It's kind of what these last 3 guys all have run into. They're all players that just need to clean up their technique. They need to become more refined in the way that they approach defenders. If he can be more patient, if he can wait and use some of that ability of his to recover with his extremely gifted strength profile, then he's going to be just a lauded prospect. He lunges, he lowers his head, just the thing that you don't want to see from an interior offensive lineman, really any lineman, because it all of a sudden paints you in a really vulnerable position, and players can easily hit a swim move on you, get you off balance, and effectively pull you from any ability to block, run, or do any pass protection. And then ultimately, I think he does have some slower feet. I think he's got beat by speed rushers more often than I'd like to see. Once again, I'm not sure if that comes down to him just being a little more tightly wound and a little bit more lumbering because of that strength profile, or if he needs to work on his footwork and stay a little bit lighter on his feet. But he will get beat by speed rushers. So kind of a couple negatives to him, but overall, extremely impressive player when you take just the way he's built and what he's able to do, both in the weight room and on the field. Someone that I think is going to be a really high interior offensive lineman throughout this draft cycle. So Jaden Roberts, guard out of Alabama, comes in at number 3. And then for me, I have actually 2 centers as my top interior offensive lineman. First off is Connor Lew out of Auburn. Connor Lew, this is going to be his first year being draft eligible. He's a true junior. Comes in with, I would say, what is probably a fairly typical center build, 6'3", 302 pounds. So he checks the 300-pound box. Whether or not he actually does, or Auburn's kind of fudging the numbers. He's still there. He looks like he's over 300 pounds, definitely looks heavier than both Brailsford and Jones. So like to see that already. He's a player. Again, he's got a wrestling background to him. He is a high academic background to him. And really all the positions, I like to see a high IQ, obviously out of the quarterback, out of the center, definitely, because you are calling out protection, audibles on the offensive line. You are kind of the leader of that group. So you have to have that, I don't want to say that advanced knowledge, but a really high IQ for football if you're going to be able to do that. And him having a 4.0 high school GPA, being a two-time SEC academic honor roll member, I think is a really, really good start for him. So Connor Lew comes in at number 2. He, aside from the aspects of the high IQ, I think he plays above his weight class, and his weight class already being fairly decent for the center position. He's a people mover, despite a little bit of a smaller frame, and with that, then it gives him that plus athleticism to be able to move really well in space. So I think that he just kind of a full package deal gives you a lot of the things that you want to see. Good in run blocking, high IQ, and athletic and pass protection, things that I think ultimately go a really long way in evaluating a prospect. I think he could put maybe a little bit more mass on his bones. 310, I think, would be really, really good. But ultimately, kind of wherever he ends up will be probably more than beneficial for NFL teams. He can lunge at times, clean up, and I think it's, once again, just a technical thing that he can clean up. I don't necessarily see the super leverage that I would expect out of a former wrestler and a player that comes in at 6'3" for the interior position. I'd love to see a little bit more of that natural leverage, and I didn't see it as much. So I don't want to say disappointed. I didn't think it was bad leverage, but I just thought I was going to be wowed by it, and I just ultimately wasn't. But I think he does so many other things really well that it's really not a huge detriment if he can develop that a little bit more, tap into that experience. I think it's just going to ultimately continue to raise him up. So Connor Lew, probably true center, comes in at number 2 in my interior offensive lineman rankings. And then at number 1, I've already said it's a center. If you haven't guessed it by now, it is Jake Slaughter out of the University of Florida. Once again, another player that was in last year's draft cycle, ultimately decided to return, which really caps off, in my opinion, an impressive center group. Before I talk about Slaughter, Lew, Brailsford, Jones, Lalulu, Bryce Foster, all center prospects, all guys that I have that could be easily drafted in the top 150. Slaughter and Lew, I could see these guys drafted in the top 50. I really, really, really like this center class. I think it's one of the better center classes that we've had in a long time. But let me talk about why I like Jake Slaughter so much. 6'4", 308 pounds. I think with that, he's actually got some flexibility to play guard as well. I think that he is ultimately just a really well-rounded player for the position. He has an excellent understanding of defensive schemes, really good pre-snap reads for his line group. He's a great leader on that offensive line. It showed up very well last year. Climbs extremely well to the second level, and he has adequate play strength to hold up to defensive linemen at the SEC, even the strongest linemen. He did a really good job of. I think that's a really good litmus test for looking at the NFL. Ultimately, he's probably one of the most well-rounded players in this group, and I think that that's what you want to see, is a guy with a really high floor that is going to be an excellent character and like IQ player for that group. He doesn't lack play strength, but like I said, it's not going to wow you. Man, you see him next to Jaden Roberts, it's probably going to pull him back a little bit. I don't think that it's a detriment, but it's definitely something that might cap that ceiling of his. And he can struggle at times to move his feet through blocks. I think he's got the ability to kind of continue to grow in that manner. Like I said, he's a really smart player. He's a 3-time SEC academic honor roll player as well. Just a guy that understands, what it means to be a teammate, what it means to be a football player, and just kind of an individual in life. So I think he's got the ability to kind of continue to grow in terms of the technical things that he needs to clean up, the footwork being probably the biggest one. Aside from that, like I said, I really, really like everything that he brings. I think he's probably the highest floor player in this group. Maybe not the highest ceiling player, but right now, just if I had to take any guy from this group as one interior offensive lineman, Jake Slaughter would be that and a little bit more. He's pretty comfortably ahead of everyone else, including Lou, from this group. So Jake Slaughter, center. I think he could play some guard too if needed at the NFL, but center out of Florida caps off my rankings as my number 1 interior offensive lineman. So just to recap, starting with 1, we go Slaughter, Connor Lew, Jaden Roberts, Chase Basantis, DJ Campbell, rounding out the top 5. Number 6, we go with Parker Brailsford, Logan Jones, Ipani Lalulu, Armaj Reed Adams, and Bryce Foster. Impressive having 6 of those players being center prospects. Really, really, really like this group. I put it out there on Twitter a couple weeks ago. Even before I started, I knew so much about the guys coming back. If you are an NFL team and you need a center, man, is this a great time to need a center, because this class is going to be loaded with them, with some really, really good talent. Even if Lou decides to not come out, even if Lalulu decides to not come out, there are still 4 really good centers in this class that I would probably be more than happy to have starting on an NFL roster. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Weekly Huddle. Once again, as always, we appreciate you hanging out with us. If you're enjoying the football talk, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what is coming next. As always, you can keep up with the show on YouTube by searching the Weekly Huddle, and you can follow along on Twitter at Weekly Huddle, as you can see posted above on the top of the screen. You can find me on Twitter at NFL Draft _Weston. If you want to see more takes and scouting notes between episodes, I'm always sharing those out, kind of putting my thoughts out there, trying to find as many clips of these guys as I can. Once again, thanks for joining us. Catch you next time.